Hey, this is Netty with Rocket Powered Sound, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I remade Titans by Excision and Wooli. So, I've got the project file in front of me. This is what it sounds like. Drop it. So yeah, just a short remake. I didn't make the full drop or anything like that, but I did make the main bass and like, you know, the drums and everything like that. So let's just get right into how I made this. Up here, I just have some like reference tracks and stuff that you don't need to worry about. And then right here, I have the little like drop it thing because I don't have the exact like sample or anything like that. But the rest is all self-made, all coming from like, you know, Rocket Powered Sound sample packs and just like Serum sound design, things like that. So let's get into it. So let's just go top down, and then afterwards, I'll share some maybe some like arrangements, like observations I've made from, you know, recreating this song. So at the top here, we have, first off, we have the drop group. So this is just like everything, it's like what it sounds like soloed. Kind of neat. So we have the drop sub up here, first of all. Sounds like that. So this sub is like fully sustained. It's not actually going up or down in volume. Or actually, I guess it's going up a little bit in volume. Like, as you can see here, I just have this like mapped to the level. And I just have this like kind of like sine thingy. Like I kind of took the fundamental harmonic and then the third harmonic and then like boosted that a little bit, and that gives it like that little bit of overtone, that little bit of beef. And then I also adjusted the phase on this. So nerdy. I adjusted the phase on these so that the it looks a bit more squared out rather than like, because then it'll kind of like, you can crank it a lot louder without it clipping, so that, you know, that's good. That's always a good thing, I think. And so yeah, I just have that mapped to the level just a little bit, like ever so slightly, because I just noticed that was happening in the original. Like the sub wasn't like just like always at max volume. It was kind of like ever so slightly, like gradually like going up in volume. So I wanted to replicate that as well. So that's that. And then I have the same sub, but then in fake out form. So this has like a different volume automation to it, which is kind of neat, right? Because you've got like the drop sub that just kind of sustains, but then for the fake out, you have one that like goes up and down in volume, so that way you have like little gaps in the sub. So I imagine that's because like when you're listening to this on like big festival speakers, you know, like hearing this fake out is going to feel a lot different than hearing this on hearing the drop on the same speakers, right? So like it's just going to kind of hit a lot harder when that sub is just like totally sustained like that. So yeah, let's move on. Next we have this little like artifact. I think there's like some sort of like crunch artifact maybe happening with like, there's the thing you can do with a frequency shifter. I'll show you guys how to do that real quick. And essentially like it gives you these like crunch artifacts, and I wasn't able to quite like capture that in this one, but essentially what it is like if you get a bandpass on a saw wave like this, get the like a 24 bandpass, and then you just like kind of like put it really low and then add a frequency shifter. You don't even have to touch it. And then just add like 3 OTTs. You'll get these like, artifacts. You hear that? That. So I wasn't quite able to like get like, I don't know exactly like how they did, you know, got the that like crunch artifact going on, but I just took a Rocket Powered Sound sample, the Aliens effect shot from the Rumble pack. It sounds like this. I just OTT'd it and EQ out the low end. Sounds like that. And you know, just like that, just kind of added like that bit of like that like little like shimmer kind of sound. And then I have like a little effect shot. This is I think also from this is also from the Rumble pack. Again, I just EQ'd out some of the low end. This just like adds a little bit of rhythm, I suppose. Nothing crazy with the sound design on these, like it's just like arranging stuff. And then here we get to the fun part. So this is the bass group. As you can see, like several layers. Like this is like all these layers are like the same, like part of the same sound. Let's break down the layers, right? So first off, I'm gonna just like play all the layers and then like show you guys how, show you guys how I made each individual layer. So starting with this one. Then we have this one. And this one, little growl, and then we have this super aggressive yoy. And so the reason I have two of these is because this is actually like a simpler instance, and I wanted to like automate the rate of this for the da-da-da part. So I did that here. I just like made it like shorter so that because otherwise it sounds kind of ugly. Like if you have it like this, like it kind of like it doesn't flow that well. So I did that, and yeah, those are the layers. So let's get into that. Let's start with this top. I call it crooker saw. So what this is, it's not crazy complicated. It's pretty simple actually. What this is you have saw wave playing just at like the root note. So we're in D minor. So this is just playing at the root note. So this is just playing a D. And then we have oscillator B turned on, and this is playing like, so 3 octaves higher and then like 7 semitones higher. So this is like playing like a fifth, like at like you know, above the E. What's happening here, the reason it has that like characteristic is because we're like really like cranking like the saw waves into each other and like creating like a really nice texture because of it. So there's no effects on this or anything, so it's just like these two things, and then all the post-processing is like, you know, like done on, you know, these like posts right here. So essentially what we have going on here is yeah, those 2 saw waves, and we just have this like automating volume, right? This one is quieter. The oscillator A, the lower one, is a lot lower than the oscillator B. Let me just like turn off the post here, and then you guys can kind of hear this better. Sounds pretty goofy. But this is what the lower sounds like. Really quiet, really just sad, right? You really don't want this to be your, you know, the bass that you've you know, made for a song ideally. So then I have the upper layer added to it, and what I'm doing here is I'm filtering just oscillator B to go like in and out. So without it sounds like this. With it sounds like that. And so like the reason I did that is because of the post. So I'll show you guys what the post is, so that it'll kind of make sense. So we have this, right? This kind of unfortunately sad sound. And what I did is I added an amp to it. And that's like most of the sound, right? So like, why does it do that? Great question. I don't know if you asked that or not, but like, let me show you anyway. So in Ableton, with the amp specifically on the heavy mode, there's like this sweet spot on the gain that's exactly like 5 decibels that like, it basically prioritizes the bass like way over like any mid-frequency information. So if I turn this down or up at all, it totally loses its charm, or like, you know. But like 5 decibels, like the perfect sweet spot. And so like, yeah, what's going on there, the reason I have the lower oscillator so like low down is because like, yeah, it like the amp prioritizes low frequencies distorting into the higher frequencies. And so like oftentimes like if you try to like distort like you know, you take an amp on the heavy mode and you put like you run a bass through it, it'll just sound like sub, because like if you're not managing the sub, then like it's just like, you know, it's just gonna crunch it so hard that it like, you know, loses all its character. So yeah, I strategically made the sub bass like a low volume and ran it through the amp. And then, so with the filter, you can kind of hear that like when you turn it on, the high saw layer kind of like it decays a bit faster. So take a listen. Like right now it's kind of like all the same volume, but if I like it throughout the whole you know, relative to the oscillator A, kind of the same volume, but if I turn on the filter, it kind of has like its own like character, and like like it decays a bit faster. It's a bit shorter, ever so slightly shorter than oscillator A, because it's getting filtered out a bit. So there's my scientific analysis of this Serum preset patch. And we have a mid-side EQ. So this was totally unnecessary. I don't know why I did that. Like, that's really not doing anything. But we're gonna just ignore that. And then I added a I added a fat rack. So this is just like adding just a slight touch of like distortion and like OTT. It's just kind of like, you could kind of get a similar effect by with just like adding an OTT at like maybe 50% and just turning the time up all the way, time scaling or whatever you want to call it, and then an EQ that is doing nothing. Great. Oh, right, there's also processing on the group itself, so we'll get to that in a minute, because that's also kind of affecting the sound a bit. So, okay, let's move on to the lead layer. So I'm pretty sure this is like the exact same patch as the other one, just without oscillator A. Like, yeah, and then with 16 voices. Exact same thing. So just with 16 voices on oscillator B, like exactly the same thing. exact same post-processing, like everything is the same. Then we have this growl. So this is like literally just like a monster wavetable, no post-processing, where I'm just like automating. So whenever I make growls, I like to do this like this specific like filter. I take this specific filter and then like do this specific vowel movement with it. So what I'm doing is I'm automating the cutoff of so we have a high notch 12, and so I have LFO1 mapped to this. And so it's making like the low frequency thingy go like up and down. And then I have the notch mapped like inversely, so going the other way. So that kind of like, you know, like does that. And so that's pretty neat. And I have the, then on oscillator A, I have the bend minus mode. And that's just like, you know, going along with alpha 1. And it's just making it nice and squelchy. It's pretty simple. The monster wavetables are where it's at if you want to make like simple growls. Very, very, very simple stuff in my opinion. Feel free to disagree. Okay. Then we have, turn this off. We have a little bit of weird post-processing going on. So without post, it sounds like this, which is like a bit like, it sounds a bit lame, right? And what I did is because I wanted some stereo on this, but I didn't want to just like add like a dimension expander, for example, or like, I don't know, like there's like a few ways you can add like stereo to stuff, right? But like what I wanted is I wanted to perfectly maintain the texture that I had going on in the high end. I wanted it to not be disturbed. So what I did is I did kind of a weird move. So I did like a parallel chain. So these are like two audio signals of like the same kind, like running in parallel. I took, so I have two of these. I have one like this, that is cutting out the high end. So it sounds like this. And then one that's like only having the high end, so that I could like specifically process the high end and not the low end. And what I did is I added an EQ just like, yeah, just to do that, just to target that high end. And then I added a Haas effect. So this is like what you're doing with this is like you're like delaying one channel while keeping the other like unaffected. And the reason that is important is because it causes stereo. Like you hear stereo when you do that. And so what I'm doing is I'm just delaying the right channel by 10 milliseconds. And that's just causing it to like, you know, get stereo. Right. That's great. It's super epic. I have a disperser that I'm not using, and then I have a fat rack to beef it up a bit. Again, there's some more post-processing going on after the whole group, so like it's not really completely accurate to say that this is all the post-processing, but we'll move on from that real quicksies. And we have this yoi. So this is like literally just a sample. I have a pitch effect just to pitch it up like to the same note as this like MIDI up here. So that way I could just copy it over and like quick, and I don't have to mess with like octaves or anything like that. Because sometimes when you load in like bass samples to a sampler, the octave is going to be like so low, you know, you have to shift it up like 3 octaves anytime you want to copy over the MIDI, and I didn't want to do it. Just added a pitch effect. Little life hack. I just took the known yoink bass one shot. I don't think I can look this up. Oh no, I can. So this is coming from the Chaos Dubsteps drums pack. There's like just some like yoink bass one shots in here. I just took the known yoink bass one shot, plop that in there, and then like I said earlier in the video, I just took this one and then like shorten it up a bit, and this is just to kind of like, you know, add a bit of, have it nice and short, and that way like it can kind of like decay a bit. And then on the group I just have like one EQ that's just kind of like cutting out some of the like mid frequency information, so that it's like leaves this room to breathe, because they're sitting kind of in the same frequency range, right? Like this. You can kind of see, if you look at the frequency spectrum on this, like you've got one big peak here, and another here, and so it's maybe not a completely accurate guesstimate to like put it right here, because like I would actually be a bit more like here if I wanted to EQ it right, but whatever. I just like didn't guesstimate correctly, you know, but it's close enough. And it's also just to kind of like reduce some of the valleyness, because without it. It's like a yeah, and here it's just like a bit more tamed. Together, that's what that sounds like. And now let's get into the group processing. So this is, let me show you without the effects. Sounds like this. Yeah, So let's get into it. First thing I did is added a fat rack. Again, this is like the same thing. I just put the fat all the way down, and it's kind of, I think what it's doing is just like saturating it just a bit, and maybe like adding a little bit of OTT. And then I added a EQ, cut out the low end, because it's got some pretty gnarly low end, right? Like, let me just like kind of... Like when you compare this to the original, like this isn't really what it sounds like. Like this is like super thick, right? I would use it like this, and like if I was making this song, I would have like left it like this, but you know, I'm not Excision and Wooli, so yeah, I cut out the low end, and then I added a soft clipper. So this is essentially to like tame the sound a bit, because what can happen, and I turned the output down by 2 decibels. So like what can happen is like if you make a really loud sound, like it can like start, you know, affecting the other sounds in the project. But when you add a soft clipper, it's like locking in like exactly how loud it is, and from there you can turn it down, and like it's not gonna like clip any less or like sound like it's clipping any less. So for example, like if I didn't soft clip it and I just turned down the drive, like it would get quieter, but it would also like lose some of its like distortion characteristics. And so like soft clipping that is like kind of like locking in like the like levels of distortion that you've got going on, and then you can turn it down, and it'll like it won't affect the characteristic of the sound at all to like change the output. So that's what I did there. Great. Then I added a Valhalla room, so there's just a reverb on these settings, just to add a smidge of room, nothing crazy. And lastly, a mid-side EQ to kind of get rid of some of the like the low end stereo information, because you don't really need that. So there you go. That's the group processing on that, and just that's that whole sound. And then here is the drums just on their own. So let's get into that. I have a kick here, the simple kick from, I don't know how to do it. Show my brother. Here we go. This is from the bundle. It's the simple kick. It's got that like perfect it's a pretty similar kick to what you get in the original of Titans, so I went with this one. We've got the false open hat from the rumble pack in the open hi-hats section. Sounds like this. Very nice. And then I have the hearth clap with just some like OTT and like a little low cut, and this is from the rumble pack as well. Great. And then I just have some sidechaining going on. By the way, this is how I sidechain. Like sometimes I get like questions asked about this, so let me just show you how I sidechain. What I have right here is I have this like MIDI thing where I'm triggering a drum rack. So like let me show you. I have this is a drum rack, and you can essentially load samples into a drum rack. And if you trigger those samples with MIDI, then you can like use MIDI for drums. And so I used to do MIDI drums because like I would just load samples into here and then just like play them through MIDI. But I realized like I don't really like doing it that way. As I've learned more about my own workflow, I've decided to like not do that just for I just like working with audio. But anyway, so what I have is I have these 2 very short white noise snippets. So like let me show, and they're very loud as well. Like it's like these are turned up all the way. So like let me show you what these sound like. So just like hitting the rhythm of the night. No, just kidding. They're hitting the rhythm of the drums. And what I have is, so this is kind of like a little bit longer than like the snare one, but I only use the kick one, so that's not really relevant information. What this is routed to, right? We have the sidechain. I have this turned off, so you can't hear it, by the way. Like otherwise you'd hear this, which is not a very pleasant sound. What I have this routed to is the reason I have this like in a group, right, is I have 2 compressors. So I have it's kind of unnecessary to have 2, but I just have, I haven't changed it. I didn't feel like changing it ever, so I just didn't. I have that sidechain running through 2 compressors. They're like mostly the same settings. So yeah, I just have the sidechain thing turned on, audio from sidechain, like which is the MIDI trigger thing, and then I just have, I think, the gain turned up really high, the release on 50 milliseconds, and then the threshold down. And then I have, so this is just kind of for the bulk of the sidechaining. And then I have the second compressor to like actually make it like hit like basically like negative infinity. It doesn't actually hit that, but it's like it's close enough. And this way like it actually like sidechains it all the way. And yeah, it's pretty simple. And the release on the second compressor is like really short, so that way it's just like the beginning part that's like getting sidechained that hard. Super simple. Yeah, I have that like on any I deleted the other groups that I had in the project, but if I ever have like an intro project or something like that, or an intro group section thingy, like if I want to make an intro for my song, then I'll add like the, I have these like this exact same setup on those groups. That's how I sidechain. Kind of fun. Then I have the smooth crash here. Sounds like this. There's kind of a lot of processing on this section, so I'll show you guys what's going on there. This is from the Future Bundle, Smooth Crash. Let me get into the processing on this. So without this, it sounds like this. Like a standard crash. But I wanted it to be a bit more like noisy, a bit more like tame. And so what I did is I added an auto pan. And so what this is doing is it's kind of making it like kind of go like down in volume a bit without it just going fully down in volume. I don't want to just do this because then it goes down to like 0 volume right here. Like kind of in this last part, you have like 0 volume. I didn't want that either. So I took an auto pan instead. And then it never actually goes fully down to 0. And so I kind of like that effect. Then I added an erosion on the wide noise mode, which is just kind of like to like kind of make it sound like less, like have less tonality. So we've got this, right? And then this, like, you know, there's a big difference. And so like I wanted very splashy like crashes. And so I did that. Then I added a spectral time. So this is like just to smooth out the sound. So you notice when I added the erosion, you get this kind of like gritty texture. Not quite what I was going for, so I added a spectral time. And that removes a lot of that when you turn on the spray like to like 15 milliseconds or like higher. You start getting the sound smooth out, and then I just EQ'd out like all the low end. There you go, that's it. A lot of work for just a simple crash, but yeah. And then lastly we have like a crowd effect. And this is also kind of doing the same like auto pan thing. And that's it. That is the project. So now let's get into like some observational techniques. So I already touched on this a bit earlier, or I said observational techniques. I meant like arrangements, like observations and stuff like that. First off, let's like kind of acknowledge like the way it's arranged, right? So we have the fake out, and then we have like, you know, the drop, right? This fake out is two bars long. And I think in the original, it like kind of, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but yeah. Anyway, the thing I wanted to touch on is like you have this sub kind of going in like that like oscillating in volume, but then like, you know, like when it comes down to like the drop itself, it's totally sustained. So I found that neat. I also find it interesting that like you have like such the bass actually goes like so like it's like so full sounding, but then like it's like kind of modulated up in volume, and it goes kind of down to 0 more or less. Like if you were to render this out like this. Hold on, let me turn off the sidechain. If you take out the sub, which let's take out the sub, right? You'll see it like it kind of more or less goes like down to 0 here, like 0 volume. And I found that kind of interesting because for like a track that sounds so full, that's kind of surprising, right? Like you would kind of expect it to be like this wall of sound, but like no, it's kind of like oscillating up and down in volume. So I found that pretty interesting as well. I turn the sidechain back on. I mean, the rest is pretty basic, like, you know, bass house arrangement stuff. Like, I mean, like you have the little like little pitch bend thingy, which is kind of cool. Let me show you that as well. I just like have that on, I think two semitones, and then I did that. It's basic stuff. And lastly, the drums are kind of quiet, like comparatively to like if I were to do this, I would definitely have picked like way punchier drums. But like I found it kind of neat because they have this like kind of like knocky like trap kick almost, right? And then they have it like layered over like basic clap. Like if I were to play this, I wouldn't expect such a huge like bass house track, right? Which is, I think that's interesting. But yeah, other than that, you know, that's pretty much the project. So yeah, I hope you guys found this video educational. Be sure to check out the Rocket Powered sound packs if you guys want to get the exact samples that I used for this project. And I hope to see you guys in another video. Bye bye.